usually say what they want.
Malachi.
Good evening, everybody. This is a meeting of the Village of Yellow Springs Board of Zoning Appeals, and I'll cover a little bit. So we'll call the meeting to order. Judy, would you do the roll call, please, ma'am?
Yes, indeed. Salmonson.
Present.
Reed.
Present.
Raska.
Present.
Osterholm.
Here.
Pilata.
Here.
Also present are Planning and Zoning and Economic Development Director Meg Leatherman and Solicitor Amy Blankenship.
The review of the agenda, we have one variance to consider tonight. Communications, we've received one, the board has received one letter. We all got it about 3 days ago, and we have a copy in front of us from Kim Berkey, I'm not good with names, Cammie Berkey and Steve Shaw. Are they here out of coincidence? No, they're not. Okay, thank you. If I would take a couple minutes, if you haven't read the minutes, let me know if you have any additions or deletions or corrections. In about a minute, I will make a motion to, or someone will make a motion to accept the minutes.
I'll motion to accept the motion.
Second.
We'll do it by voice vote. Everybody in favor of accepting the minutes as written, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, the minutes are passed. The next, we'll call, we'll do this new thing. We're going to swear everybody in to the meeting. I will read the, I'd appreciate if everybody stood up if able. I'll read it and raise your right hand, and that goes for you guys too.
And so this is for anyone who intends to speak tonight, because this is a BZA hearing, so what you are doing is actually presenting testimony.
Stand up.
So it's just for anyone who intends to provide
The
testimony.
attorney says no.
The board does not have to be sworn in. Just anyone that's speaking to the board.
Okay, get the right piece of paper, excuse me. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth in matters before this board?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay.
That was really short. Huh? Well, you didn't see how much, there's all these words. Okay, now we'll turn to Meg for a brief it doesn't have to be brief, excuse me, a summary of the case before us.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Meg Leatherman. This is a variance application that was submitted by Jared Miller with Woda Cooper Companies, Inc. The application includes two variance requests, one to allow an increase of density by 6 dwelling units an acre, and a second for a reduction of parking to 1.75 parking spaces per dwelling unit. The property is located near 420 East Enon Road and is 3.6 acres of vacant land at the intersection of East Enon and Dayton Yellow Springs Roads. The property is zoned RC. And Jared Miller is here tonight, who will speak to the application after when it's appropriate. So adjoining property owners were mailed a notice on January 27th, 2025. Signs were posted on the property January 29th, and a notice was published in the paper on January 31st, 2025. A staff report was prepared that outlines the applicable code, and that also has related facts to the case, and it was provided to the board and posted on our website on February 7th, 2025. So the project proposal includes the development of 71 multifamily units that will remain permanently affordable. Multifamily is a permitted use in the RC zone. And I'm just going to give a little bit of background. There's a lot more background and history in my staff report and a timeline of actions conducted by the village, and then also a timeline of next steps in there. But in November 2024, the village issued an RFP to select a development team capable of constructing affordable housing and securing award of what's called a 9% low-income housing tax credits through the Ohio Housing Finance Agency, or these all have acronyms. Ohio Housing Finance Agency, you might hear me say OFA, or Low Income Housing Tax Credits, LIHTC is referred to a lot. A selection committee was formed, and the selection committee identified Woda Cooper Companies as the top respondent. And then on December 17, 2024, Village Council accepted that recommendation. And since selection of Woda Cooper, the team, staff, and Woda Cooper have been reviewing the LIHTC program and requirements, submitted a pre-application to OFA on January 3rd. And also through that review, identified a need for more units that's allowed in the RC zone. So that's why we're here tonight. After the pre-application, which was submitted on January 3rd, there's also 2 other application deadlines. A proposal application is what it's called. Proposal application is due to OFA on February 27th, and then a final application is due September 18th. And again, there's more detail on this in my staff report. And then I also did notice that a typo in my staff report on the timeline. The proposal application is due February 27th, and I think the staff report says 7th. It leaves off the 2, so apologize for that. So again, this application includes 2 variance requests, 1 for density and 1 for parking. First, I'll go over density. The code calculates density by a number of dwelling units provided per acre of land, or you'll see DU and AC. I'll pause. Okay, cool. So the RC zoning allows for up to 14 dwelling units per acre of density, and the variance request is to increase that by 6 dwelling units an acre for a total of 20 dwelling units an acre. With the property being 3.6 acres, that would equate to up to 72 units. I went and back, and you'll see presented on the screen, these are, and I went and did this after the staff report, but other multifamily developments in the village. So you guys had a comparison of what the density and parking was provided on those other multifamily units. I will point out that the parking spots might be like 1 or 2 off, because I actually just went off of the aerial imagery, and sometimes the line's a little bit faded. So if it's more of like an estimate, just to clarify, in case there's someone else who knows that might be a little bit different, that's why. So just highlighting the density ranges for other multifamily projects that are existing in the village today, and the provided parking spaces and number of stories, so you just have a context for that. So in general, the request for density is basically that to further allocate tax credits, basically taking full advantage of the LIHTC program, was why they're asking for the increase in units, and then also with requesting more necessary state funding. You can by having more one-bedroom units, and Jared, I think, can elaborate in more detail on that. He's with Woda Cooper Companies, and he can explain more of the rationale behind it in more detail if you're interested or have questions about that. So turning to the parking, the code requires 2 parking spaces for 1 dwelling unit, which equates to 142 parking spaces if we authorize the 71 units. And Woda Cooper is requesting 1.75 for a total of 124 parking spaces. In my staff report, I kind of outline the existing current documented need for housing, specifically affordable housing in the village, and what has been done so far in the village to add additional housing supply. There is also several comprehensive plan policies that support housing, additional housing, specifically affordable housing in the village. So that is why staff's recommendation came through for approval, and I will then just stand for questions if you have any.
Board, please.
I have a question. Is there any evidence that this will affect delivery of utilities or emergency services?
No, not through final site plan review and with additional analysis in the future. That will all be taken care of and addressed, yes. And I will just add that the Public Works Director has been involved in review of this and hasn't identified anything I have concern about.
I have a question on your chart. As you can see, most of those do not meet the current village requirements, at least looking at it real quickly.
Yeah.
Okay, did all those meet a zoning board? And or were these built and then approved later?
I think they're all various levels of that. I think I didn't really go back but just knowing off the top of my head, like the Cascades is a newer project, so they did go through and they got a PUD approval for that higher density. But some of those have been in place for quite a while.
But the Cascades isn't even up there, is it?
Yeah. It's like
Oh, next to last,
So
thank
that's a
you.
newer one. A lot of these were constructed and put in place before the current zoning standards, so.
Okay, that answers my question.
Yeah, but I can't go by case and give you that.
No.
For
Glen
sure.
Cottages was late.
Glen Cottage is also a newer one.
Yeah, if you-
Yes.
Yeah, that's the one that we want to look at, and that's your similar one.
You said this will be permanently affordable?
Yes, yes. So the LIHTC funding program through this OFA, the state of Ohio, requires it to be permanently affordable for 30 years. But then Woda Cooper has committed, at least to this point, of continuing to keep it affordable. That's all that they do. Is affordable multifamily units, and again, they can probably state their level of commitment tonight. But we have been in some initial discussions about documenting that in a development agreement that hasn't yet been finalized with us, but so that is something that staff is aware of as a concern of the community, and that we hope to integrate into the next steps of approval documents or agreement with them.
And do you know offhand, what has the village outlay been so far on this project? If you talk about dollars and in-kind contributions.
I don't think we have anything that I could officially report on that. I mean, we have had quite a bit of staff time. The council's been pretty heavily involved. And we have solicitor attorney fees, and she might be able to report on how much the attorney fees have been, but that's just one aspect.
But we also have the $100,000 thing.
Yes, the commitment, you're talking about the commitments, yeah.
Below market value. What is the gross? $250,000? We're talking.
Yeah, I don't think I have good information or numbers to provide on that. It's something that we could, look into and report back to you on.
Okay.
I could probably answer a little bit on that, Meg, if that's all right. In terms of the sale of the property, the intent is not to sell it for below market value. We have an appraisal on the property, and the intent is to sell it for the appraised value.
Okay.
In terms of, there's the $100,000 commitment, right, for soccer fields in the future. There is, of course, extensive legal fees. I don't have a number for you on that. I'm sure it's north of $40,000 at this point. The bulk of that being the preliminary steps that were taken to get the property unencumbered. But beyond that, I don't know.
Okay.
I have a somewhat related question. Is there any estimation of, once the project is complete, the yearly taxes that will come to the village as a result of this?
I don't believe that we've run those numbers either.
Hard to.
But I can, commit to getting that back to you if that's something you're interested in.
I think
I
that's a
am-
question for council, too. Council's answered that in some way, shape, or form, too. Some of the council members have gone into that.
And if I could just say, all interesting questions, but we're here to decide on the variance, not if they're going to build it or not build it. That's for the council, and good questions from everybody, but our job is to decide on the variances, not build it or not build it. That's for the council and however they decide to do it. So at no place does cost enter into the variance.
No, and the only reason
I mean,
I
I
would
see what you-
say
yeah.
is that if we were to put a condition on some kind of approval, just kind of, what universe are we working in?
Yeah, and I think our attorney can probably address that. Maybe we can have her do that after
She's
we
shaking
hear
her
from
head
them.
no.
No? Oh, okay. Sorry.
I don't have any numbers for you tonight. Certainly, we can get those numbers. It would be easy, relatively easy to run and figure out.
Oh, I thought I was meaning more about like what world that they can make a decision on. Like,
Oh.
that is kind of what I thought he was meaning.
I'm sorry,
Maybe
yeah,
wrong.
I was still back there looking at something about the property taxes. In terms of what you're considering tonight, you're really pretty focused on a very specific, yes, on a very specific request, which is the variance for density and the variance for parking. And the way your code works for the BZA, where you're sitting right now in a quasi-judicial administrative capacity, right? So you're being asked to hear evidence and then weigh the evidence, and then you're going to look at your A decision standards and weigh those decision standards as they apply to these two variance requests. So I'm putting the cart before the horse here, but something that I did want to mention to you is you will hear comments tonight, I'm sure, from the public. Some of it will be considered testimony and evidence that's in front of you to weigh as you evaluate these variances. Some of it is just public comment. And it is difficult to tell the difference between the two as we navigate through something like this and a hearing like this. But for BZAs under Ohio law, what's relevant to you is anyone that's speaking, what's relevant to you as evidence, I should say, is anyone that's speaking about a direct benefit or detriment that they personally or their property might see as a result of the variance. So that's really what rises to the level of evidence for you to consider tonight.
Who's speaking for? Yes, that's what I was going to do.
First from the developer.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I was going to do.
Yeah.
Please, sir.
Hi, my name is Jeremy.
Oh, I have to, since your testimony, I have to ask you, you've been sworn in. You agree?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. There you go, Judy.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jared Miller. I'm with Woda Cooper Companies. We're the developer on the project, or at least the lead developer. I was asked to pull together some information just on the Woda Cooper Companies in general. I will try to keep it brief because I know we want to, as you said, focus on the variances at hand. But we're here today to talk about the Greene project. And just for some background on who the development team is, it's going to be Woda Cooper Companies as the lead developer, a part owner, the builder, the architect who's with me here today, and then we are also the long-term property manager. So we would be with the development over the life of the development. And then also another partner of ours is Neighborhood Housing Partnership of Greater Springfield. We brought them on to help us secure additional financing in the project. They are a CHODO that is based out of Springfield, not too far from here, and they would be serving as a owner and then also a supportive service provider. And I know for a lot of the people here, you may have seen the slide last week, so I apologize for that, but just for a little background on Woda Cooper Companies specifically, what we do is we develop, we construct, and we manage affordable housing. Since our founding in 1990, we have Our total community count now is over 330 communities and over 16,000 units. That's spread across 17 different states in the Midwest, Mid-Atlantic, and Southeast. And the way we do that is through our vertical integration structure. So we are the first vertically integrated affordable housing development firm in the nation. What that means is that under our Woda Cooper Communities umbrella, we have a developer, we have a general contractor, an architect, manager, and a full suite of services to provide to the community. And that is our offer here with this development, is to provide all of those services for this project and be a long-term partner through the life of the project. So Meg touched on the timeline briefly. I'll reiterate the important parts of it because I know the tax credit industry and the timeline that OFA mandates can be kind of confusing. So there are multiple application stages. The first is a pre-application, which we did submit on January 3rd. That just tells OFA, the Ohio Housing Finance Agency, that, hey, we have a project and we'd like to submit it for a competitive tax credit application. And the goal we're working towards now is that proposal app submission, which is February 27th. So for that, we need to show sufficient evidence that the building is fully zoned and can receive tax credits. After that, they go through a competitive process. There will be numerous projects submitted across the state, and they will select probably around 20 to 25 of a total of 60 or more applicants to be awarded tax credits. And if you are selected, we'll probably hear in May, maybe June, and then that would be an invitation to submit a final application, which would be in September. Once we hear back that we would be invited to submit the final application, that's kind of when you know that you have an award of tax credits. That's when we'd be working through the majority of the design phases. So we'd be finishing the schematic design and then moving into further community meetings, the zoning, and the site plan approval process, and then eventually to the final application, building permit, and we'd be eyeing a construction start in the summer of 2026. So if there's any questions about that process, I'd be happy to answer them. But I think that was the last slide I had.
Questions, gang?
So
Please.
once the project is complete, you stay as the property manager? Is that correct?
Yeah, that'd be correct. And then we also, the property's going to offer supportive services to tenants, whether that's financial literacy, home buyer education. We don't personally do that. That would be a local partner who, whether it is Home Inc. or whether it's the CHOTA that we currently have on board, they would be providing supportive services to the tenants.
But how's that 30-year affordability thing structured?
Yeah, explain exactly. Explain the tax credits for us, so how that works after 15, 30, and then after that, how does that all work, and what's the benefit, or who's investing to make that
Right.
tax credit happen?
So the tax credit industry operates on tax credits, which you would be awarded through the state. So we will apply for the project, and we'll receive an allocation over a 10-year period of annual tax credits. We sell those tax credits to an investor, and that's how the project gets its majority financing. So the investor, whether it's a bank or whoever may be buying the tax credits, we use them for their purposes. They become a part owner in the project, but the developer, the longtime owner in our sense, would be us. And we would be with the project through the life of it. So the investor is involved for the next 15 years. That's your typical tax credit compliance period. And then whichever state you're working in adds on an additional compliance period where the project has to remain affordable beyond that 15-year scope. So in Ohio, that is 30 years total. In Michigan, it's 45. In Pennsylvania, it's 40. Each state kind of differs, but Ohio says theirs at 30. And then obviously our goal here is to be involved throughout the life of the project and to maintain the permanent affordability aspect. Woda Cooper Companies, we've been in business since 1990, and for the last 35 years, we solely do affordable housing. This is our bread and butter. So our goal would be to keep it long-term affordable and ideally do what's called a re-syndication. So in 30 years, the project's going to need certain updates, whether that's through mechanical systems or the exterior. What we would like to do is to apply for tax credits again, reissue that 30-year period, and then be awarded financing to then update the building. That's the typical structure for a tax credit project over its lifetime.
I have a question. If the variances are turned down, does that stop you from doing the project? And if so, why?
So we want to be involved in the project. We think the support that the project has locally and obviously over its life, we would like to be involved in Yellow Springs, so we would try to find a way to make the tax credit project work. I will say though, without a variance and only being able to do the 50 units that are currently allowed for zoning, the project is going to lose a lot of its competitive edge. It is a competitive project as of now with the 71 units, but the applications that are going to be submitted, there's 70 across the state that are going to be competing for the same pool of a limited resource. And typically, the way that's decided is through a competitive point system. And this project scores highly in the competitive point system, but it's likely going to face competition that ties its points. The way it gets decided from there is through tiebreakers, the first one being a total unit count. So in summary, the total units is kind of what will help the project meet or exceed some of the competition. Now, a lot of the other projects are going to be hitting that 70-ish unit count as well. The reason for that is because OFA, they decide kind of how many units they would like to see in a project. They have a number that they think is efficient to build, let's say, and for them, that number is about 70.
Oh, okay.
So the way they kind of dictate however many units each project will have is they set a funding limit per unit. So effectively, if you want to maximize the total funding from the
Bang
state,
for your buck, yeah.
right, then you have to hit their suggested unit count. And they think 70 is about the right number to be building.
So having the CHOTA and having 70 is going to score better for you, it's going to give you a leg up in the competition?
When it comes to tiebreakers, yes. The biggest reason for the additional units and the involvement of the CHOTA is for further financing. So just quick numbers, if you were able to add the 21 units, I think we'd be able to receive about $4.5 million additional state financing through the tax credit program. And that's not money you want to leave on the table. And then with the CHOTA involvement, it allows you to apply for home funds, which is a federal resource. And the only avenue in the 9% round this year through OFA to get that federal resource is through involvement of a CHOTA.
Excellent.
Any worry about that money going away?
In what way?
The state or the feds?
It's committed for this round. Next year, they get, when, I understand what you're saying. No, I'm not worried about it going away from any macro political reasons. It's a federal resource that has a long-term commitment to it, so it's going to be re-upped annually. And the way that OFA is divvying out their allocation of it this year is through CHOTA involvement.
One last question, going back to, you've been in business for 35 years and light tech projects, you've got 30 years. You've still, the projects that are coming due now, you're keeping them as yours, you haven't turned them over, they're still part of your portfolio?
Yeah, we are the long-term owners and operator of all the projects. Okay. And for some of those ones in our early years that are now becoming, at seeing the end of their compliance period, we're now going through that re-syndication process. I know Joe's working on one called Brent now, or maybe I misnamed it. It starts with a B, but we're working through that process now.
Thank you. I'd like to, you good?
If you're good.
Okay. I didn't want to cut you short. I'd like to open the public hearing now if anybody'd like to speak. Or forever hold your peace. Yes, ma'am. Please come up here and identify yourself and where you live. It's a little more definite than Yellow Springs.
Yes, my name's Rebecca Potter. I live on 346 Staten Street in Yellow Springs, and I'm the school board president, and I'm speaking.
I have a question before you go. Are you speaking as a school board president, or are you speaking as...
I'm speaking as an
Ms.
individual on the issue of parking.
Who are you representing, yourself or the school board?
In this case, I am relating information that's impactful from the school board. So as a school board president, I'm relaying the information about the variance with regarding density.
Okay.
The school board didn't take up the issue of parking, so I do want to say that that would be my comments as an individual.
Okay.
Okay.
Fair enough.
And so, first of all, thank you all. It's a big decision. Thank you, Woda Cooper, for the great Thursday meeting and your information tonight. But I think this has been a long journey that we've collaborated on together, and I'm very hopeful that this will end in a successful application and a vibrant community. However, I do have some concerns. When the board looked on investigating the feasibility of the LIHTC project back in May, we decided to subdivide 3.6 acres in order to avoid this meeting tonight, to avoid a variance. And the conditions we were given was that it would be a development of 50 units, and it would be for families, especially for kids. And that is still a primary concern for underlying the school board's commitment to this project. Woda Cooper, in their successful application, provided a drawing for 50 units of 2 separate buildings housing 25 units each. And the discussion held on LIHTC from November until January, when we passed the amendment to the option to sell, were all based on LIHTC being committed to providing housing for kids. Now, I want to say this is an aside, we did not take up parking, and parking and kids have always competed for space, but in this project, kids need to win. Please support reductions to parking. I was glad to see those statistics that showed that most apartment developments in this town have a much more dense or closer to 1-to-1 ratio in parking, and I encourage you to consider that, especially because for this project to be a success, all of the conditions that make it a success need to be met. And in this journey, we have met almost all of them. However, I don't think we meet the condition of providing viable housing for kids with this plan. So I'll be real quick. Make sure that at least 1/3 of all units are 3-bedroom. Make sure that green space is protected. Make sure that the design includes separate buildings that promote the community feel, which you are dedicated to support. And add those conditions to any decision that you make tonight, or go with the original plan and reject the variance. Because raising healthy and well-educated kids in a safe community environment is all of our goals tonight, so I'd like to keep that front and center.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to speak? Going. Please. Next.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see.
Hi, I'm Jackie Hempling. Thank you for your report, Meg.
Can you affirm that you did swear on? I wasn't sure.
I can confirm that I did indeed say I do, and I swore an oath to tell the truth. And I'd like to thank Woda Cooper for submitting this application for variance. I mean, 21 units is obviously larger than, several of the other multifamily housing, things in the village, and it's like a very big deal to have that approved, as well as obviously to make this project be much more likely to succeed in getting state funding. So rah-rah, I support the variance.
Thank you. Thank you. Rah-rah. Sir, you had your hand up?
Yeah, Judith is going to...
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't...
I'll be last.
I was not here when you guys did the swearing in.
Oh.
We can swear it in.
Yeah, I got it in front of me.
Swear in, swear after you pick. Because I have to swear in. I have to swear in.
Ma'am, if you raise your right hand, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth of the matters before this board?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I just want to point, my name's Judith Hempling. I live at 225 West Limestone Street, Yellow Springs. I just wanted to point out the statement from the Ohio Department of Health. Zoning protects public health and welfare and promotes community character. We've been hearing from WODA that they are committed to keeping this permanently affordable. Right now, they want something. We need it in writing to make sure that that's going to happen. That's my feeling. We've had other promises in the past that have not been kept by, larger businesses in town because it was not ever put in writing. And then the other thing is that I know makes us stronger. So my understanding is permanent affordability and a local partner makes a difference in the strength of the proposal. And we know that Home Inc. has done a lot of really great stuff in the community for many years. There should be a role here for them to play, even if it's towards the future, even if it's not right at this particular moment. A lot of people in town would like to see that. They trust Home Inc. to look out for the best interest of the community, and so I would advocate that those be two things that are asked for by BZA in granting this variance. Thank you.
Thank you. It's obnoxious.
Effective.
Oh, we get one of you. I don't.
Do you want to go last? Oh, no. Yeah. Go ahead, April. Sorry. I do like
Hello.
to go last.
I'm sorry.
My name's April Wolford. I'm sorry. Oh, yeah,
you were here for the swearing.
I swore to tell the truth and all that.
Thank you.
Yeah. My name's April Wolford. I live on West Jackson Road, so I am outside of town, but I'm deeply involved in Yellow Springs community, including serving on the board of Home Inc. But tonight I'm going to speak to you as a citizen. Okay. I've also been very involved in the LIHTC project and trying to get this to happen, so I'm delighted that it is happening and that we're moving forward on it. But I ask that before you approve this request, you consider a few things, and one of them is to increase the number of 3-bedroom apartments. Again, as Rebecca mentioned, the goal here has been, and first, particularly for the schools, is families to have more children in the district. So it would be great if there was a better balance between the 3-bedroom apartments and 1-bedroom apartments. Also, this project has been hard won. In terms of the permanent affordability of the project, I'm really glad to hear Meg say that there's work happening to put that commitment in writing because, with all due respect, businesses have to make decisions based on their bottom lines, and if the situation arises in which there's financial difficulty or whatnot, it would be great to have some kind of permanent and legal agreement about that affordability. And then lastly, I also just want to say that it would be great if Home Inc. is a local partner. I appreciate your comments that there may be a role for us in the future, but at this point, we have a lot of money for this project, hundreds of thousands of dollars that are going to go to Springfield for the neighborhood housing partnership group that is there, and those resources and developer fees at this time will not stay within the village of Yellow Springs. So I don't know if you can do anything about that, or if you can put conditions on this decision, then those would be some of the things I suggest. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Can we ask questions of the?
No.
Let's hold the questions. We'll hold the questions till the end. I think this is the end.
And I did not swear in.
So,
I did not expect
you were late, huh? Is that what you're telling us?
Thanks, Anthony.
Right hand.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth?
Oh, you want my right hand? Yeah. All right.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth in matters before this board?
Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Anthony. So, protocol.
God, that's annoying.
Protocol on right hands, you mean? Yeah. Yeah, I don't think we have that protocol. But what I do want to say is, again, I did not plan to speak tonight. And it was pointed out to me that, these decisions can be appealed to council, and if I need to recuse for that, I will. But first of all, I really appreciate Jared's, speaking out about, the fact that we will have some entity, hopefully, that will guarantee permanent affordability. It was surprising to me to hear that that could be Home Inc. And so hopefully that means that Home Inc. is still a consideration as a local partner for a variety of reasons. And I hope this board is thinking about the fact that we would like to have somebody who really understands what our community is about, and that is one of the things that we have been requesting. Second thing I wanted to mention is that I do want you to think about the conditions related to variances and the fact that when you look at that particular piece, ultimately your goal is to think about public health and welfare and the community character. And I think that's really important when we look at this particular project. The third thing I want to mention is that when we look at goals around affordable housing, there are a few things that really do matter for our community. One of those being the fact that we do want to make sure that this project, especially if we're looking at a lot of additional density, does stay permanently affordable. And I understand that it's nice to consider the fact that there's a guarantee that it will stay that way. The reality is we've worked with a lot of commercial and residential developers in the 11 and a half years that I've been on council. Those good intentions do not always translate. And the last thing I wanted to mention is that related to, what did I say here? Money going away, changes in. All right, I'm going to leave that piece for now. But I think the main thing I want to emphasize is that when you guys look at this decision, it is great to have developers that are really responsible and want to make sure this is going to be permanently affordable. The reality is that our community is looking for some guarantees. You guys have the ability to put conditions related to these decisions, and I just want to make sure that ultimately we do have a project that makes sense for our community moving forward. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Other speaker, please, ma'am. Ma'am, were you here for the swearing in?
I apologize. I had another event. I was not here.
You ready?
Yes.
I think I'd memorize it by now. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth in the matters before us?
Yes.
Before this board? Thank you. Name?
Mary Ann McQueen. I live at 120 West Davis Street in Yellow Springs. This is a comment. I know both how much work has gone into trying to get this to where it is locally, and I'm sure with Woda. I also know that statistically the chances of getting this are about 30%, just looking at the numbers. So I want to say I do support the increase in density because I think that it would make the project more viable. And I think all this work that has gone into this, it will be very deflating for us not to get awarded this project. I also support the decreased parking for added green space and also for more units. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else? I'd like to close the public hearing at this time. Board, if I could say something in general, and not to, a lot of the points you brought up were very, very important, and you met a lot of them. Probably some of these points would be better said to the Planning Commission than the Zoning Board, since all we're doing is deciding on those two issues. We're not going to discuss 3 stories or more bedrooms, or that's a Planning Commission thing. And I urge you, if you feel strongly, go Planning Commission. We're here to do the 2 things we talked about, the density and the parking. But they were all valid comments, and but I really urge you to go to the Zoning Board if you feel strong in those.
How is that? Is there a plan review then that would be a step?
Yeah, site plan application review, building permits, and we also have to still finalize the development agreement.
And is that where the final number of units and the bedrooms are locked in?
They need to lock in the number of units and the unit mix before the 27th submittal. But the design details and the site plan application details can be sorted out after that February 27th deadline. But they have to have the density before the 27th, and the unit mix can't change.
May I ask a question? What at present is your outlay for 1, 2, 3, 4 bedroom apartments?
I'm John Wynette.
No, that's the...
You talking about the ratio?
Yeah, what's the current?
What do you mean by outlay, I guess?
You mean the number of each of each sort of kind of units?
Scott has pointed out that it is in the packet.
Well,
That's okay.
That's the ask, though.
And so, Amy, well, board members, would it be useful for Amy to make a distinction between what you're able to consider as testimony?
Yeah, I was going to ask you to do
and
that.
what- Yeah.
Please, ma'am, solicitor.
Ben got me a microphone, and I refused to use it. Well, it goes along the lines of what we discussed before you heard from the public, in that anyone who, though I don't know that you heard from any neighboring property owners tonight. So, you have the letter, yes.
That's all we
So, anyone who is potentially facing a unique benefit or detriment to themselves or to their property, that's considered evidence before a BZA. And this is the law of Ohio, right? This is the way cases have shaken out in terms of when a decision by a BZA is appealed or challenged, what the BZA properly had before it for consideration. Tonight, that's going to be your staff report, Meg's presentation, the presentation from Woda, as well as, you had some specific questions to Meg about different aspects of the application. The rest of the public comment that you heard is just that, public comment, and does not rise to the level of evidence. Meg, disagree with me if you heard anyone that lives nearby the property, or?
I don't believe so.
That one would, yes, that property owner would, because they live close to the property, yes.
I would like to say the school is next.
The school, I knew I was missing something, and I meant to mention that, yes, of course. Thank you, yes, the schools, of course, would, the concerns that were raised by the schools on behalf of, the concerns were regarding.
Well, she was speaking only, for the school board, only regarding parking.
On the density, yeah.
Okay, yes.
Density, I'm sorry.
So, yes, so certainly that would be well placed before the board as evidence,
Right, the
yes.
density issue, and I'm not sure if that, and of course, the number of 3-bedroom units to promote affordable housing, but yeah, I did not address how that would negatively impact this.
Right. And, and again, you as a board are looking specifically at a parking variance and a density variance. And as the chair pointed out, concerns about the breakdown of units doesn't really fall in front of you tonight or fall under the purview of the BZA's review on those 2 variances.
Thank you. I think with the parking...
Thank you, ma'am.
I think with the parking that I wanted to go over, I think there's a couple things that we want to look at with parking-wise. You've had, in the late 90s and the 2000s, you had Vernay in the area addressing this letter that was saying that there may be too much density, or there may be too much traffic, and parking would be, with the amount of cars, they said you had Vernay and you had Antioch Book Plate, which had at least, I looked at it today, looked at least 300 employees each, 3 shifts at Vernay, and bookplate was, whatever they were doing with their normal working hours. So you had the traffic, you had a bigger school population, you had more buses, and there wasn't an issue with traffic at that point in time. There's nothing changing here. In fact, you're still, even with adding the project in itself, it wasn't going to get, you're not seeing more cars, and even with adding the 21 more, you're not seeing that traffic that we had back in the 1990s and the 2000s with both those companies here. So putting things in perspective, we're still way below with the traffic and the congestion and that you had at that point in time, and there were no issues back then, along with the infrastructure of sewers and streets and runoff. Something to consider.
Meg, could you put your slide up there with the other developments in town and the parking places?
And they're going down to what?
They're requesting a density of 20. The variance is the 6, so the difference between what's allowed in the RC is just 14, and so.
And this is really the last step for you guys before you submit this application, correct? And is that application going to specify the number of units and the size of those units?
Yes.
Yeah, that would be correct.
Yes.
Okay. And I'm just thinking out loud here, but I mean, a lot of these densities for parking
1-to-1
are, yeah, 1-to-1. Most, all but 1 or 2 are less than what they're asking for.
Right. Exactly.
My question is, if you forfeited some additional parking places and reduced the number of parking, could you add some 3-bedroom or 2-bedroom units instead of having all these adds being 1?
Now, is this just deliberation, or can he answer these questions?
Well, I think you're really getting into planning commission.
But Judy, this is the last chance. This would be locked in once they have this application.
I think that's the point too, and Matt, thinking out loud too, is that, other than adding the 21, they've been locked in with school board and with council, working through all this, with all the details over the last year and a half. So we're looking at, and you look at these other
10 single units is kind of a new thing.
Correct. You're right. It's an extra. And I think the advantage was the $4.5 million that they could get in money for it, the CHOTA that they have involved with it. I think those are the benefits of it that makes it more.
And what I'm saying, Dino, is can we sacrifice the parking places, maintain the 70 units, and add some multi-bedroom?
And I think that's changing. And I think that's what Judy was saying, is if we're changing the program, are we allowed to do that? It sounds like we're going down.
No, we're trying to solve.
Well, I think Meg was heading in the right direction, because I believe this is something that Jared had addressed, at least to some extent, during the community meeting. So,
which we couldn't go to, so we don't have that information.
Correct. That's why I'm saying. I could speak to this.
Well, and certainly I'll let Jared speak to any discussion that you want to have with him, but. You have an application in front of you, a specific variance application with specific numbers, and if you start to changing that, typically what we would recommend in a circumstance like that is, if the applicant was open to it, that the application would be tabled, revised, and brought back to this board for consideration. We don't have time for that, based on their timing. So it gets challenging to start negotiating, I think, in the moment to change the variance application. Not necessarily impossible, but quite challenging. And, it doesn't give Meg the time to run an analysis on it the way she has for the application that's before you. Those are just my thoughts.
And
So I think, can we hear from Jared, like to see what you...
Yes.
And Mr. Raska has a question too.
I just had a thought. I used to live at South Winter Street. We never had any parking problem.
And that's a one-to-one.
And that's a one-to-one, right?
Please.
Right. So to speak to the parking, we think 1.75 is a lot. You're going to have a lot of parking there. For a community of this size with this student mix, we'd be looking for 1.5, maybe even below that. We think that's probably the right number, and you still have ample parking. Meg, or Amy, did I hear you correctly that we wouldn't be able to alter the variance today?
If we change it.
Can alter the variance.
I'm going to have to use this microphone.
We're going to make your life miserable here, Amy. Sorry.
It doesn't, not at all. If both parties, the board and the applicant, are open to doing that, if that's something that you're interested in engaging in, we can do that. It's just, if it causes Meg any concerns, right, because we haven't had a chance to, she won't have had a chance to review it, but don't let me stop you. Carry on the conversation and see.
Well,
I'm thinking.
I'm
just thinking.
Throw something into the mix, which is that you have someone representing the school board saying we would like more 3-bedroom units. That is not a mandate coming from the village side. The village is, we need more housing, period. So I think that's a factor in considering that from the village side, any more affordable housing is good housing. From the school side, there's a specific interest in more kids. So it's yeah, I don't know if that's relevant. Yes, Matt.
Would it be possible to adjust the variance to just add more units and then you just add that many more 3-bedroom units?
No.
No. So, yeah, you wouldn't want to add more total units. I think the question here would be making some of the 2-bedrooms 3-bedrooms. I think I'm hearing what Meg and Amy are kind of saying is that it does open us up. It's a very odd conversation to have right now to adjust the variance and then us having you guys committing to something that you're not totally sure on and us committing something that we're not totally sure on. But our goal is to provide a development that the community wants to see. We would like to look at adding more 3-bedrooms, just the timeline we've had. Getting involved in the process when we did and working through the community meetings that were last week, we have already been working through the variance process here on the timeline for the application. So
Your application is due the 27th?
27th, correct.
Jared, I have a question for you, actually. If you engage in this conversation with the board, let's say the variance is granted tonight as requested, and then if you look to the site and start to change, try to pivot to more 3-bedroom units, will the cap, I'm not saying this very well, will the cap of the variance that you've asked for tonight, will you be working within those numbers?
No, so that's the issue. We're, as you can see with the site plan that's been showed here and there, and I think it's in your packet there, we're limited by the requirements for the site, so that the 1.75 ratio we're suggesting, and then the total units we're suggesting, you've maxed out the site's space, effectively.
So I'm going to advise the board that we not change this variance on the fly tonight. It's not been advertised that way. It's not been.
Totally agree.
Yeah, it undermines the record a bit to do so.
I have a question for the school, ma'am. Does this infringe on any of the school activities other than the soccer field, which we all but like parking? Do you expect overflow parking to end up in the school parking lot? Do you expect people wandering, adults that aren't really wandering through the school or to the school? Do you see any downplay in that area since it's right next to the school?
I can't answer that. I just don't have enough information. It's not my expertise. So I would defer to Meg and the superintendent and the school staff. Also, the ESC has to be involved.
Yep.
So unfortunately, Anthony, I can't answer your question there.
But you've been to many meetings. It hasn't
yeah.
been- It hasn't been brought up as a issue, to the best of your knowledge.
Concerns about parking have been brought up as an issue, and I think we've heard concerns from people who've talked at the school board, both in consideration of having enough parking, also in consideration of making sure there's not too much parking. There was definitely, with the original Woda Cooper design, concerns about the design of the parking because it covers a lot of space. And that's why, as an individual school board member, I said really, when we consider parking and kids do need to win on this, and so I'm very glad to hear that the BZA is considering a reduction in parking spaces, and glad to hear that Woda Cooper is. The main goal is that this is a community development that really fosters an environment for families with children, and there are elements in there that are great, like the playground, the community room, etc. There are elements that need to be made better.
Okay, thank you.
So I got a question now, Amy.
Did you open it back up?
So Rebecca was responding as a school board member, but she referenced community input, which we've just heard is not testimony. So now I'm confused.
Sorry, Judy. I think we can leave, this board, now I am using the mic then. This board is more than capable, I think, of sifting through the portion of what her comments that are testimony and the portion that is just more of a public comment.
And I think it still goes back to what the village council was going for, what the village has gone through, the staff has done, what they've come through to bring it to this point. And now it's our decision to push it forward or to undermine it. And sorry to say, we've gone this far with it. I want to see it through the finish line. I know our president of the village council wants to see it through to the end. He wants to get the application in. He wants to see this get to the line, and whatever happens after that happens. But for us to come in at this point in time, in my feeling, as unelected officials here, and to undermine it is going to be detrimental to all of us and to the community. It's something that, whether I've been for it or against it, I'm at that point now where we've got to push it through. It's got to happen, and they're on the crunch of the 27th to get this application in. If they don't submit, it goes away, and we'll see you next year. We can go through the whole process all over again.
I don't think anyone wants to undermine it. What I'm wondering is, and Amy, this is probably back to you, is can we craft a condition that allows them to use a density of 1.5 spaces per unit with the space that you gain then used to convert some 2-bedroom to 3-bedroom units?
That's out of our purview, isn't it? Or is
Yes,
it?
that's what I was speaking to a few minutes ago, where that is changing. This variance was applied for in a very specific way and advertised in a very specific way, so I would advise against changing it like that on the fly.
But in some ways, this is the only opportunity that anyone's had a chance.
If I may add, I know that we've adjusted variances in the past, like when we had that sign thing come before us for, yes.
It's 7 feet and 8 feet, yeah.
Yes. Anyway, my embarrassment continues. But we have adjusted them in the past.
But we never told them to add a smaller sign to get billboards.
Which also didn't have, and we didn't have an application coming in, which is probably the bigger issue I think that we're up against.
But that was a very small variance, too. I just, one thing from my economics, sunk costs should not enter into your decision. That's my economics background. Okay, any other comments from the board?
So you're saying no? Amy says she doesn't.
Amy, I'm not watching Amy. Are we ready to go through the Duncan rules?
Well, do you need to get more clarity from Amy before you hit question number 6 on those Duncan standards?
I do have a question. Thank you, Ms. Blankenship.
I just can't listen.
You advise against adjusting the variance. but we could do it. Is that my understanding? And my second question, my corollary question is, what would be the potential issues of adjusting the variance at this point?
The technicalities of what adjusting the variances could do is more for Jared and Woda to speak to. But again, legally I would advise against changing a variance in the hearing. The applicant has requested what they've requested, and that's what's before the board. To do otherwise, we're in a very specific area of the law here, right? There are times, especially like in a village council, even in planning commission occasionally, where you're not working within the confines of very specific areas of the law. You are. As a BZA, as a hearing a variance, this is very specific. And to take this applicant, it has to be publicly noticed in a very particular way, which of course the notices all would have reflected the variance as requested. So to change it at this point, I do see, I see legal issues with doing that.
Could we be sued?
That's exactly the legal issue. Oh, yeah.
Therein lies the issue.
So as an administrative board, right, as an administrative board, your decisions are taken on appeal, right? It's again, a unique type of lawsuit that's brought against the village. And when I say it undermines the record to start changing it at this point, it undermines the entire box of what we are doing here, in that if it did get challenged, there are weaknesses.
We could be sued either way.
And really, if you go that far, you've killed the timeline.
Correct.
No offense against your work ethic, but you never get there. So I think we've sort of decided that we stay with the variances as requested. Is everybody, any real objections to that? I mean, they're all good ideas, and hopefully some can be worked out at the Planning Commission. Not saying they will be, but that's your next step. But we can do the variances tonight. Is everybody ready to go through the Duncan rules?
Yes.
I'm not hearing any negatives. Judy, if you would, please.
All right, so these are two variances. So I'll read the density variance first, because parking variance matters quite a lot less if the first one doesn't pass. So this is a variance of an additional 6 dwelling units per acre for a total of 20 dwelling units per acre. I am going to roll through. If I don't hear a holler, I will call roll right after reading the question. Okay, so the first question is whether the property in question will yield a reasonable return, or whether there can be any beneficial use of the property without the variance. Raska.
I lament that I was conferring with Mr. Reed here and I missed your question.
Oh, you got
Question number one.
Number one.
Oh, no.
Pallotta.
No.
Osterholm.
No.
I'm sorry?
No.
Reed?
Yes.
Yes.
Salmonson? All right, second question, whether the variance is substantial. Salmonson?
Yes.
Raska?
No.
Reed?
Yes.
Pallotta?
No.
Osterholm?
No.
Third question, whether the essential character of the neighborhood would be substantially altered, or whether adjoining properties would suffer a substantial detriment as a result of variance. Pallotta?
No.
Osterholm?
No.
Reed?
No.
Raska?
No.
Salmonson?
No.
4, whether the variance would adversely affect delivery of governmental services such as water distribution, sanitary sewer collection, electric distribution, stormwater collection, or refuse collection. Pallotta?
No.
Reed?
No.
Raska?
No.
Salmonson?
No.
Osterholm?
No.
5, whether the property owner purchased the property with knowledge of the zoning restriction. Raska?
Yes.
Reed?
Yes.
Salmonson?
Yes.
Pallotta?
Yes.
Osterholm?
Yes.
6, whether the property owner's predicament feasibly can be obviated through some method other than a variance.
May I ask you a question on that? Who are we considering the property owner?
Yeah.
The applicant, not the whoever owns the school. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Osterholm?
Yes.
Pallotta?
No.
Raska?
No.
Reed?
No.
Salmonson?
Yes.
7, whether the existing conditions from which a variance is being sought were self-created. Raska?
Yes.
Reed?
Yes.
Pallotta?
Yes.
Osterholm?
Yes.
Salmonson?
Yes.
And 8, whether the spirit and intent behind the zoning requirement would be observed and substantial justice done by granting the variance. Reed?
Yes.
Raska?
Yes.
Salmonson?
Yes.
Pallotta?
Yes.
Osterholm?
Yes.
For the vote.
Let's take someone to make a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to pass the variances as is.
Seconded.
Okay, just explain, read the variance, just so we all know what we're voting
Can
on.
I do both variances, or are we doing one
No,
at a time?
you're doing one.
I'm sorry. Would you like me to do the housing first?
So you have just read Duncan standards for the increase in density?
Yes.
So you'd be, yes, that is,
For the housing density?
Yes.
To make a motion.
A little bit of discussion. Can we add a condition that the 30-year affordability is reached and made part of whatever variance is granted?
Can do that, I'll second it.
Solicitor, please.
Yeah, sorry.
I didn't hear what he said.
You're asking for a condition that a condition of the variance that the units be affordable for 30 years. So that's being spelled out contractually between the village and Woda in our development agreement. And Woda has indicated, kick me if I'm speaking out of turn, to being open to the idea of putting that in some type of deed restriction on the property.
That's already required
That's not.
by OFA and LIHTC.
I'm sorry, Matt,
So
can
then-
I, just to clarify, I heard you say past 30 years? Is
No.
that you, up to 30 years?
30 years.
30
Up to
years.
30 years.
30
Yeah.
years is already.
It's required.
Please be
already
quiet,
part of your
audience,
agreement.
please.
Okay.
15 and 30.
Amy, please.
Sorry, there.
So my point there was that condition, that concern will be covered through other legal
Contractually.
channels. I should say, other legal channels which will be easily found in the due diligence research on the property even 20, 30 years from now.
Okay.
Whereas a condition on a variance can get lost.
Isn't the LIHTC project 15 and 30 years? It's already locked in, right? Isn't that part of the LIHTC?
Yes.
Yes.
The LIHTC project is 15 and
It's a
30.
state law, yeah, basically.
I heard both of those things here tonight, so.
Yeah, good. Would someone like to make a specific motion?
I'd like to make a specific motion on the density without a variance.
So I'm going to just say what I think you're
Please,
saying.
yeah.
I believe that I heard from you, that
Yes.
you would like to make a motion to approve the applicant's request for a variance to add an additional 6 dwelling units per acre for a total of 20 dwelling units per acre.
And I
Is that
didn't even
heard?
move my mouth. That's perfect.
Thank you.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We'll do a roll call vote.
All right.
Judy, please.
Yes, Reed.
Yes.
Raska.
Yes.
Osterholm.
Yes.
Pallotta.
Yes.
Salmonson.
Yes.
Thank you.
That kills the first one, or bad choice of words. That finishes the first one. Could we move to, could we, any motion on the second variance?
Motion to approve the variance to the parking requirement.
Second.
So, Raska.
I'm giving Judy a second.
Okay.
Okay, we'll do this by a roll call
So
vote.
we are going to go through,
Oh, we gotta go through the Duncan standards,
yes,
excuse me.
I know you love it.
Yeah,
So much.
I stand
So-
corrected. Judy with the Duncan standards, and this is for the parking variances, guys.
And I'm noting that we've got a motion on the table, so I'll come back to it. First of all, whether the property in question will yield a reasonable return or whether there can be any beneficial use of the property without the variance. Raska.
No.
Salmonson.
Yes.
Pallotta.
Yes.
Osterholm.
Yes.
Reed.
Yes.
2, whether the variance is substantial. Pallotta.
No.
Osterholm.
No.
Reed.
No.
Raska.
No.
Salmonson.
Yes.
3, whether the essential character of the neighborhood would be substantially altered or whether adjoining properties would suffer a substantial detriment as a result of the variance. Pallotta.
No.
Reed.
No.
Raska.
No.
Salmonson.
No.
Osterholm.
No.
4, whether the variance would adversely affect delivery of governmental services of any sort, such as water, sanitary, sewer, electric, stormwater collection, or refuse collection. Raska.
No.
Pallotta.
No.
Osterholm.
No.
Reed.
No.
Salmonson.
No.
5, whether the property owner purchased the property with knowledge of the zoning restriction. Osterholm.
Yes.
Pallotta.
Yes.
Salmonson.
Yes.
Raska.
Yes.
Reed.
Yes.
6, whether the property owner's predicament feasibly can be obviated through some method other than a variance. Reed.
Yes.
Raska.
Yes.
Salmonson.
Yes.
Pallotta.
Yes.
Osterholm.
Yes.
7, whether the existing conditions from which a variance is being sought were self-created. Salmonson.
Yes.
Raska.
Yes.
Reed.
Yes.
Pallotta.
Yes.
Osterholm.
Yes.
And 8, whether the spirit and intent behind the zoning requirement would be observed and substantial justice done by granting the variance. Pallotta.
Yes.
Reed.
Yes.
Raska.
Yes.
Osterholm.
Yes.
Salmonson.
Yes.
Thank you.
We have a motion on the floor. Who made it? Matt, would you?
Motion to approve the variance to the density as requested?
The variance to the parking requirement.
Parking requirement,
As
yep.
requested, yes.
Second.
Thank you. Thank
Okay.
you. Any discussion? Good, okay. Reed.
Any discussion?
Nope.
Okay, we've
Sorry.
discussed it all night.
Sorry.
Roll call, please. Judy?
Reed.
Yes.
Raska.
Yes.
Osterholm.
Yes.
Pallotta.
Yes.
Salmonson.
No.
Thank you.
You have your variances. So thank you for the presentation. Thank you for attending. Thank everybody for attending. We got just one more thing. The agenda planning, Judy or Meg?
No, we don't have anything I'm aware of on the books right now.
Okay, thank you. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
I missed all that. Motion to adjourn was who?
Matt Raska. Seconded by Dino.
Thank you.
We're doing a voice vote. All in favor? Aye. It passed unanimously.
All those against, sit up.
All opposed?
I don't feel confident enough to go against the village solicitor.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you.